The Kremlin regime has always tried to justify its aggressive, invasive policy with so-called historical prerequisites. In particular, in an interview with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson, Putin repeated almost all of his favorite talking points, including a very amateurish historical speech about the relations between Russia and Ukraine. Although Putin's so-called historical references baffled even the favorite host of Russian propaganda.
Использование истории.
The use of history or pseudo-history in Putin's performance has been used for years as a kind of ideological justification for Russian aggression. Despite Carlson's expertise as a TV presenter, as a blogger, as an interviewer, even he found it difficult to understand. All this Putin's stream of consciousness, all his attempts to explain everything by referring to very ancient history from the Middle Ages to the 20th century. He was jumping around in time periods, jumping around in centuries, confusing as usual, because Putin as a historian is an absolute ignoramus.
The Kremlin does not limit itself to distorting history, it also tries to make its version of events the only correct one. According to political analysts, Moscow obstructs independent historical research in every possible way and does not open its own archives. In particular, they are referring to the investigation by Canadian scientists into the deportation of Chechens and Ingush people by the Soviet government in 1944.
It was one of the largest ethnic deportations in the history of the USSR. About 500,000 people were deported. It was carried out by both NKVD, People's Commissariat for Internal Affairs, officers and Red Army soldiers. Foreign scholars have not had access to Russian archives for a long time. However, we know that the NKVD was a very bureaucratic organization and its employees methodically documented all aspects of the deportation, including problems arising during the operation. But it's difficult to find out about it. Aurelie Campana, professor of political science at Laval University in Canada, in an interview with Medusa.
According to the official Russian version, the large-scale deportation of Chechens and Ingush people was justified by their alleged collaboration with Nazi troops. Moreover, the Soviet authorities used the same statements during the deportation of other peoples. The head of Chechnya, Ramzan Kadyrov, disagreed with this version, and in September 2023, he demanded that this chapter on the deportation of people in the new history textbook be rewritten. Experts say that in today's conditions, such a protest is rather an exception.
Since Kadyrov's apparatus is more powerful than Medinsky's, the textbook was rewritten and the Russian Minister of Education specifically went to Kadyrov's house to apologize for this mistake. But this is an exception. In most cases, of course, the national elites are too closely tied to the Kremlin to raise their voices in defense of their subordinate peoples. And in the Republic of Tatarstan and Bashkiria, we know that unfortunately the current leadership is more loyal to the Kremlin than to its own peoples. And therefore, if there is outrage at the lower level, it doesn't reach any higher.
Historians agree that Stalin's deportation of Chechens and Ingush was a continuation of the Russian Empire's national policy. The peoples were punished for their resistance to Sovietization and collectivization in the 1930s. In addition, the Kremlin wanted to repopulate the territories of the North Caucasus with those more loyal to the regime, primarily Slavic people. Such resettlements was not a simple punishment, but an attempt to completely erase the people's national identity. Reported by Anastasia Tarnavska, Andrei Dmitrenko, UATV News.